Welcome to the world of science fiction Neon's Alien. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story from Neon's Alien universe. The market on planet Kareen was loud, bright, and full of life. Merchants shouted prices. Buyers bargained. Robots carried boxes and strange fruits. Ships flew overhead, making loud hums as they passed above the open-air bazaar. But in one quiet, shadowed corner, where no one looked, a girl sat alone in the dust. She was young, maybe 17 in Earth years, thin, shaking. Her skin was pale lavender, her long silver hair tangled like dry vines. She wore no clothes, just a dirty piece of cloth around her waist. Her arms were bruised, her feet were cracked. No one looked at her. Not anymore. She had been for sale 2 weeks ago. Now, no one even asked. The aliens who once owned her had given up. She was too weak, too silent, too thin to be worth anything, so they stopped trying to sell her. They left her sitting beside a broken crate with a sign over her head. Clearance, no value. She hadn't eaten for 2 days. She hadn't spoken in longer. Her eyes no longer moved when people passed. Her lips were dry, and her hands rested limp in her lap. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She had no more energy left to beg. That same day, a human named Jace Orion walked into the market. He wasn't rich, famous, or powerful. He was a ship mechanic, greasy gloves, tired boots, and a heart that had been disappointed more times than he could count. He had come to Kareen looking for spare parts for his broken thruster. He had not come looking for a girl, but fate had other plans. As he passed the vendors, buying wires and filters, his eyes drifted toward the corner. He stopped. Something caught his attention. Not a voice, not a movement, but a stillness. He stepped closer, and that's when he saw her. His face hardened. "What the hell?" The girl didn't look at him. She didn't even flinch. Her head stayed low. Her legs were pulled tightly to her chest, and her eyes stared blankly at the ground. He looked at the sign above her. Clearance. No value. Jace clenched his fists. He turned to a nearby seller and asked, "Hey, who does she belong to?" The alien merchant laughed. "Not mine. She was left here. Used up. Useless. Can't even speak." Jace's jaw tightened. "So she's just trash now?" The merchant shrugged. "You want her? Take her. No charge." Jace turned back to the girl. He knelt slowly, trying not to startle her. She didn't react. Not a blink. Not a breath. He removed his jacket and gently wrapped it around her shoulders. Still, no response. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're not trash." He picked her up, carefully, gently, and stood. Her body was light, too light. She didn't resist, she didn't even speak. She just closed her eyes like she was finally too tired to exist. As he carried her through the market, people stared. Some laughed, some sneered. But no one stopped him, and no one tried to help. Back at his small ship, parked just outside the colony, Jace laid the girl down on a cot. The room was simple: a table, 2 chairs, a small bed, and a kitchen station. He turned on the heater, got a soft blanket, then filled a cup with warm water and brought it to her lips. "Here," he said. "Drink, slowly." Her lips barely moved, but she drank. Just a little. He sat beside her, rubbing her hands between his own. "They left you to die," he whispered. "But I won't." She still said nothing, but her eyes opened, just a little, and in them, Jace saw something no one else had seen in weeks: hope. That night, he sat in a chair across the room, watching her breathe. She slept like someone who hadn't felt a bed in years. His ship creaked with the night wind. He looked out the window at the stars. "Guess I'm not leaving this planet tomorrow after all," he said to himself with a soft smile. In the shadows of the colony, word spread that a human had picked up the market ghost. Some laughed, others scoffed, but no one knew. That this girl they called worthless had just been given a second chance, and the man who gave it had just changed the future of two worlds. The girl woke up in warmth. A soft blanket covered her shoulders. The air smelled like clean metal and engine oil. Light filtered in from a small window, glowing soft orange from Kareen's morning sun. She blinked slowly. The pain in her arms. It was still there, but it wasn't worse. The floor was soft. Her skin wasn't cold. And she was alone. She sat up quickly, panic flooding her body. Where were the chains? Where were the voices shouting at her? Where was the merchant with the cane? Her heart raced. She crawled to the corner of the small room, wrapping the blanket tightly around herself. Just then, the door hissed open. She flinched, ready to be hit, but no one shouted, no one touched her. A man, human, stepped in. He held something in his hands. A bowl. Steam rose from it. Food. He noticed her fear and paused. "It's just me," he said gently. "Jace. Remember?" She stared at him like he was a creature she couldn't understand. "I brought breakfast," he added. Still, she didn't move. Jace placed the bowl on the table and sat a few feet away. "I don't know if you like soup," he said. "I had to guess you're the first guest I've had in months." She looked at the soup, then at him, then back at the soup. No sudden moves, no orders, no collars, just steam and silence. Carefully, she stood up, legs shaking, and moved to the table. She picked up the spoon like it might explode. Then she tasted it. Her lips quivered. She kept eating, not fast, just careful, like the bowl might disappear if she blinked. Too long. Jace watched her. She hadn't said a single word yet, but her eyes, they were no longer dead. They were watching now, learning, trusting. Not yet, but maybe one day. That afternoon, Jace gave her a long shirt and soft pants. They were too big but clean. She didn't know how to react. When she came out wearing them, she kept pulling the sleeves over her hands, eyes fixed on the floor. He smiled gently. "You don't have to hide anymore." She didn't answer. She just sat down on the bed facing the wall. Jace didn't push her. Instead, he picked up a small box and began fixing wires, letting the silence sit between them like a quiet friend. Next morning, he returned from the market with more food, a towel, and some soap. When he entered, she was curled up on the floor, blanket wrapped tightly. He crouched beside her. "You okay?" She looked up at him slowly, then nodded. Just once. It was the first time she responded to a question. Jace smiled. Progress. Over the next few days, he gave her space. He worked on the ship, checked local job boards, and cooked in the evenings. She began sitting closer. She ate more. She watched his hands carefully when he repaired wires, curious. One night he found her near the window, looking up at the stars. "You like the view?" he asked. She nodded again. But then she spoke, very softly. "They used to take me to a cage. When I looked up, I saw stars. I used to think someone might be watching me." Jace didn't speak. He let her say it. Her voice was quiet, uncertain, like each word hurt to push out. "But no one ever came," she whispered. Until now, she didn't even believe the stars were real. Jace knelt beside her. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything they did." She looked at him. "Why did you help me?" He thought for a moment. "Because no one else did, and because I saw someone worth saving." Her lips trembled. Tears welled in her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away, ashamed. "I don't know how to be safe," Jace gently said. "That's okay. We'll learn together." Later that night, she sat at the table and spoke again. Just one sentence. "I don't want to go back." He looked at her, eyes steady. "You won't." She stared at him for a long time, and for the first time, she believed it. It had been 7 days since Jace brought her home from the market. 7 days of warm food, Clean clothes, no chains, no orders, no shouting, but still, no name. He never asked again after the first day. She hadn't answered then. And he knew not to push. He simply called her you, or hey, or sometimes just nodded in her direction. She didn't seem to mind, but Jace wondered about her name every night before sleep. On the 8th morning, he found her standing by the window, barefoot watching the sky again. It had rained the night before. The earth smelled fresh. The air was cool. She wore a gray hoodie now, his old one. It hung off her small frame like a cloak. She turned when he entered, her silver eyes brighter than before. He smiled. "Morning." She said nothing. But she didn't. Look away. That was progress. Later that day, Jace worked on a damaged power coil near the ship's engine room. Wires sparked. He muttered curses under his breath. Then a soft voice from behind said, "Blue wire, not red." Jace froze. He turned slowly. She was standing there, hands behind her back, eyes on the wires. He blinked. "You can read circuitry?" She looked down, unsure. "I watched them do it, in cages. I remembered." Jace grinned. "Well, thanks. You just saved me from a shock." She tilted her head. "Why thank me?" He wiped his hands. "Because help is help. And you didn't have to." She was silent again, but she didn't walk away. That evening, as stars returned to the sky, they sat by the small campfire outside the ship. Jace handed her a warm drink, her favorite now, a mild herbal blend from the Kareen markets. She wrapped her hands around the cup and watched the flames dance. Jace spoke softly. "You know, you can tell me your name when you're ready, if you ever want to." She looked down into the cup, then up at the stars, and finally, at him. "My name is," she said slowly. "Aria." Jace's breath caught. He didn't say anything right away. He simply nodded once. "Aria." She nodded back. It was done. Her name lived again. Jace leaned back and looked up at the sky. "I like that name." Aria's lips moved in the smallest smile. "I did too," she whispered, before they stopped using it. "Then we'll use it again," Jace said. "As much as you like." She looked at him for a long moment, then asked, "Do you have a name?" He chuckled. "Jace." "Just Jace?" He smirked. "Well, technically Jace Orion. But yeah, just Jace is fine." "Orion," she said quietly. "That's a star name." "It is," he nodded. Aria looked at him. "You came from the stars and found me." Jace shrugged. "Maybe the stars sent me to you." Later that night, Aria took the small fire crystal lamp and placed it beside her sleeping spot. She sat in the quiet, staring at the tiny flame inside the glass. She whispered her name again just to hear it. "Aria." Soft. Alive. Real. She touched her chest, and for the first time, she felt like a person again. Not an object, not a number, not a thing. Elsewhere in the city, a hooded man stepped off a merchant ship. He carried a photo of a girl with silver eyes. He paid the merchant and asked, "Where is she?" The merchant smiled. "You mean the ghost girl?" "Yes." The man's smile was cold. Time to return what was stolen. Back in the quiet ship, Jace wrote her name on a small ID tag and handed it to her. She read it, and she smiled again, not because she was told to, but because she finally remembered who she was, and that someone, finally, did too. The sky was calm the night they came. No alarms, no noise, no warning, just silence and shadows. Aria had fallen asleep on the couch near the heater, the flame lamp glowing softly beside her. She had learned to breathe in peace again. Her face, no longer tense, was soft, resting on a real pillow. Jace, was working late in the engine bay, humming quietly to himself as he tightened a coolant valve. He had just finished writing Arya's name on a custom ID chip, planning to register her under full civilian protection in the next cycle. He didn't know it would be too late. Outside, a silent vehicle hovered down beside the ship. Its lights were off. Inside sat two men. One wore a deep brown coat. The other had a stun baton ready in his grip. They spoke in whispers. "There she is," one said, pointing to a small glowing screen. "Facial match confirmed. Subject, Arya. She's property." No, she was property. Now she's a threat. Let's end this clean. Arya stirred in her sleep. Something was wrong. The air felt cold, too still. She opened her eyes slowly and saw the lock panel blinking red. The outer door had been overridden. She sat up quickly, heart racing. Her instincts screamed, not from memory, but from now. Footsteps, boots, coming toward her. She ran, not because she was weak, but because she was smart. She grabbed the emergency beacon Jace had shown her 2 nights ago, then slid under the workbench in the back maintenance room. She pressed the signal once. It blinked green. The intruders broke in seconds later. One swept the room with a scanner. "Heat trace. She's close. Don't damage her. They still want her pretty." The other laughed. Arya gripped the handle of the old tool chest beside her. Her hands were shaking, but her breathing stayed slow. They didn't expect her to fight. That was their mistake. Back in the engine bay, Jace's comm lit up. "Emergency. Ship breach detected." He dropped the wrench and ran. He reached the main hallway, just as one of the men stepped out dragging something. Arya, her wrists scratched, clothes torn, mouth covered. But her eyes locked on Jace. She kicked the man hard, causing him to stumble, just long enough for her to tear the cloth from her mouth. "Jace!" Jace didn't wait. He charged. The hallway exploded into chaos. Jace slammed into the kidnapper, knocking him into the wall. The second man rushed in, swinging a baton, but Arya, now free, grabbed the fire extinguisher and bashed it into his side. He went down groaning. Jace pulled her behind him. "Are you okay?" She nodded, breathless. "I sent the signal." Outside, patrol lights flashed, sirens. Too late for stealth now. The attackers looked at each other and ran. One shouted over his shoulder, "This isn't over. She belongs to the Red Crest Syndicate." Jace shouted back, "Not anymore." When the city patrol arrived, they found the door smashed and blood on the floor, but the girl was alive, and the human wasn't letting her go. The officer frowned. "You should have registered her as bonded earlier," Jace glared. "She's not property, she's a person." "Even more reason," the officer replied. "The syndicates won't stop. She's valuable. She's not for sale." The officer paused. "Then you better protect her, because next time they won't miss." That night, Arya sat with Jace in silence. A bandage wrapped her arm. A bruise marked her cheek, but her eyes were stronger. "I should have fought harder," she said. "You did everything right," Jace replied. "You sent the signal. You saved yourself." She looked at him. "I was scared. Not because I thought they'd hurt me." Jace looked confused. "Then why?" she whispered. "Because I thought they'd take me before I could say goodbye." Jace closed his eyes for a second, then opened them, and said gently, "You're not going anywhere." Arya nodded once, but deep inside, something had changed. She no longer just wanted safety, she wanted to fight back, and next time she would. They called her worthless, too weak to sell, too broken to repair, too silent to be heard. But now, Arya wasn't sitting in a cage. She was walking through the dark, free, and carrying a plan. 3 nights had passed since the attack. Jace had gone to the city archives to register her for planetary protection, but before he left, Arya made a choice. "I want to help stop them," she told him. Jace looked worried. "Arya, you don't owe anyone. I owe myself," she said. "I'm tired of running. I want to finish this." He didn't argue. After that, He just nodded and handed her an old stealth tracker from his toolkit. Then we find them together. Arya had followed the syndicate symbols from alley to alley, tracing the red handprint painted on broken walls. She wasn't just guessing. She remembered how they marked territory where they stored unwanted property, and how they moved girls like her between ships. But this time, she was the shadow watching them. This time, she came for someone else. In a rusted warehouse on the city's edge, Arya found them, 3 girls, younger than her, locked in cages, silent, afraid, just like she once was. The guard outside was dozing in his chair. Arya moved like wind, soft, silent, determined. She stepped behind him, grabbed the wrench from her, tilt, and knocked him cold. Inside, the girls stared at her with wide eyes. She remembered that look. They thought she was part of the system, a scout, a trick. She held up her hands. "I'm not with them. I was like you." She showed them the scar on her wrist, the spot where her own shackle had once dug deep. They understood. Tears ran down one girl's cheek. Arya picked the lock with a tool Jace gave her. "Come with me." But she didn't expect what came next. Loud clang echoed through the back. Reinforcements. 2 armed men burst through the doors. Arya pushed the girls behind her. She wasn't fast enough to run, not strong enough to beat both. But she didn't need to win. She just needed to stall. She grabbed a flare from her belt, pulled the cap, and threw it into the air. It exploded red. The signal. Within seconds, engines roared above the warehouse. Jace's ship hovered into view. Ramp dropping open, he shouted, "Arya, go!" The guards aimed, but Arya charged forward, swinging the broken stun rod she found. She screamed, not in fear, but in fury. She struck one across the jaw. The other grabbed her, but Jace landed hard, slamming the man into the wall with his shoulder. The girls ran for the ship. Arya followed, gasping for air, heart pounding. Once aboard, Jace lifted the ship high into the sky. Arya dropped to the floor, breathless, clothes torn, but alive. The girls hugged her. "You're safe," she whispered. "No one will touch you now." Jace looked down at her, eyes full of quiet pride. "You weren't supposed to fight," he said. She looked up. "I wasn't supposed to survive either." He helped her up and said, "You didn't just survive, Arya, you saved them." That night, the rescued girls were taken to the Planetary Protection Center. Jace handed over their names, locations, and evidence. The syndicate's local operation fell within hours, but word spread faster. The girl who was once unsellable had destroyed an entire ring. She didn't do it with weapons, she did it with memory and courage. Back in the ship, Arya sat with Jace in silence. Her hands were scraped, her arm was bruised, but her heart felt strong. She whispered, "Do you think I was brave?" Jace turned to her. "No." Her eyes dropped until he added, "I know you were." Arya walked to the mirror later that night. She looked at her reflection. Her hair was messy, her face still healing, but she stood taller now. She spoke her name, and this time, she believed it. Arya sat by the ship window, watching the stars drift slowly past. The galaxy felt bigger now, not because she was lost in it, but because, for the first time, she wasn't. The silence inside the ship was soft, peaceful. Jace walked in with a small paper bag and placed it on the table. "Some hot bread from the market," he said. "Figured you'd want some before your meeting." Arya nodded, "Thanks," but her voice was distant. Later that day, a message had arrived from the Central Colonial Authority. Arya has been granted refugee status. She is offered a permanent home in the protected dome colony of Shivar 3, safe, secure, and free from any claim. Departure in 48 hours. Jace had read it aloud, then looked at her carefully. It's a good place. Clean skies, gardens, new start. Arya just listened. No smile, no protest. Just quiet. And that scared him more than 1,000 bounty hunters ever could. That evening, she stood outside the ship with a small bag packed, clothes, a data pad, the flame pendant. Not much, but all hers. Jace stood beside her, hands in his pockets. He couldn't meet her eyes. So, he started. I guess this is what freedom feels like. She nodded. It is. He forced a smile. You'll be okay there. Better than living on a scrap boat with a washed-up mechanic. She didn't answer, just stared at the horizon, then whispered, What about you? He chuckled. Me? I'll be all right. The ship still needs new thrusters, and I heard there's a faulty oxygen pump in Sector 12 that's calling my name. She looked down at her hands. Do you want me to go? The question came out barely above a breath. Jace froze. No, he said honestly. But it's your choice. She turned to him then. And for the first time since she had spoken her name, he saw fear in her eyes again. But it wasn't fear of being hurt. It was fear of losing something she didn't know she could have. I thought freedom meant leaving, she said. Going somewhere new, starting again. Jace nodded slowly. That's what most people think. But now I don't want to go, she whispered. Because when I think of home, I think of this ship. I think of you. He looked at her, eyes stinging more than he'd like to admit. You don't owe me anything, Arya. She stepped closer. But I want to stay. Not because I'm scared. Not because I need protection. She placed her hand on his chest. But because I choose you. They didn't kiss. They didn't cry. They just stood there under the soft violet light of the moons, quietly breathing together. That was enough. The next morning, Arya walked into the colony office and gave them her decision. I won't be taking the Shivar 3 relocation. The officer frowned. You'd rather stay on that old ship? She smiled. That old ship is more home than any city behind a wall. Back at the ship, Jace adjusted 2 chairs in the control room. Arya, he called out. She entered, holding a small bag of bolts. Yeah? He pointed to the co-pilot seat. I made that for you. If you're staying, you're not just a passenger. She smiled and sat beside him. So what am I now? He grinned. My partner, co-pilot, engine whisperer, circuit expert, flame-wearing alien hero. She laughed, a full, warm laugh, and for a moment it echoed through the ship like music. That night, they flew out past the colony walls. The stars ahead were endless. But they didn't feel lost, because this time they were chasing a future, not escaping a past. And in that cockpit sat 2 people, one who thought he'd never matter, and one who had once been thrown away. Together, they chose each other. The stars outside the window moved slowly, just like time. The old ship hummed gently through space, its system steady, its crew quiet. Inside the cockpit sat 2 silhouettes. One was human, hands calloused from years of repairs, eyes tired from life. The other was alien, once bruised and broken, now glowing with calm strength. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. Their silence spoke louder than words. Jace leaned back in his chair, glancing over at Arya. She was cross-legged, fixing a loose panel beside the navigation console. Careful with that, he said playfully. If you reroute the signal wrong, we might end up flying backward. Arya smirked without looking up. Then it's a good thing you trained me. I didn't train you. You just watched me until you were better at it. She tightened the screw and sat back with a grin. Maybe. Jace smiled. He liked these days. No running, no hiding, just existing with her. Later, Arya stood in the ship's small garden pod. It was just a patch of soil under grow lights filled with herbs and tiny blue flowers from her home planet. She ran her fingers across the petals. I used to think I'd never see color again, she said softly. Jace was behind her, working on the hydro tank. You see it every day now. She turned. Because of you. He shrugged. I just gave you food and a warm place. She stepped closer. You gave me choice. That word meant everything. That evening, the ship docked at a small outpost on a desert moon. They delivered supplies and helped repair a broken oxygen system for the miners. While Jace negotiated prices, Arya helped a young alien girl find her missing mother in the crowd. When she reunited them, the girl asked, "Are you a soldier?" Arya knelt down and smiled gently. "No, just someone who remembers what it feels like to be left behind." The girl hugged her tightly. Jace watched from a distance, heart full. He had saved her once, but now she was saving others. That night, as they prepared for takeoff, Jace walked into the crew quarters and found something new. A small metal plaque had been fixed to the wall. It read, "Welcome to home, Captain, Jace Orion Pilot, Arya Vel." He touched the name, Arya's name. He looked up, and there she was, holding a cup of warm herbal tea, eyes shy. "I made it," she said. "I hope that's okay." Jace blinked, then smiled. "It's more than okay." They sat together by the main viewport, watching the stars again. Arya leaned her head on his shoulder. "I never thought I'd be this person," she said. "The one who's free, who's loved, who gets to fly." "You made yourself into her," he said. She closed her eyes. "You gave me shelter," she whispered. "You gave me a reason to live again," he replied. The ship soared forward, stars bending around its wings, and in the quiet hum of the engine something beautiful bloomed. Not just freedom, not just survival, but a life built from nothing, by two people who the world had tried to forget. A girl once left naked and alone in the palm dust, and the man who refused to walk past her. Together they wrote a new ending, and in it, she was never abandoned again.